Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7. Chapter 7, text number 4, called Knowledge of the Absolute. And the title of this seminar is Chemicals Come from Life. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Vacharane Nirvishesha Shrindivadi Paskatyade Siddharna Bhumir Apanalo Vayu Kamano Buddha Evacha Antaraiti Yame Bina Prakriti Ashtada. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. Altogether, these 8 constitute my separated material energies. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The science of God analyzes the constitutional position of God and his diverse energies. Material nature is called Prakriti, or the energy of the Lord in his different Purusha incarnations, expansions, as described in the Narada Pancharatra, one of the Satvata Tantras. Vishnu's 2 Trini Rupani, Purushakya Yato Vidu, Ekam 2 Mahatak Shrastri, Dvitiyam Twanda Samsitam, Tritiyam Sarabhutastam, Tani Gyatva Vimuchite. For material creation, Lord Krishna's plenary expansion assumes 3 Vishnus. The first one, Mahavishnu, creates the total material energy known as Mahatattva. The second, Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, enters into all the universes to create diversities in each of them. The third, Kshirodakashayi Vishnu, is diffused as the all-pervading supersoul in all the universes and is known as Paramatma. He is present even within the atoms. Anyone who knows these 3 Vishnus can be liberated from material entanglement. The material world, this material world, is a temporary manifestation of one of the energies of the Lord. All the activities in the material world are directed by these 3 Vishnu expansions of Lord Krishna. These Purushas are called incarnations. Generally, one who does not know the science of God, Krishna, assumes that this material world is for the enjoyment of the living entities, that the living entities are the Purushas, causes, controllers, and enjoyers of the material energy. According to Bhagavad Gita, this atheistic conclusion is false. In the verse under discussion, it is stated that Krishna is the original cause of the material manifestation. Srimad Bhagavatam also confirms this. The ingredients of the material manifestation are separated energies of the Lord. Even the Brahma Jyoti, which is the ultimate goal of the impersonalist, is a spiritual energy manifested in the spiritual sky. There are no spiritual diversities in the Brahma Jyoti as there are in the Vaikuntha Lokas. And the impersonalist accepts this Brahma Jyoti as the ultimate eternal goal. The Paramatma manifestation is also temporary, all-pervasive aspect of the Kshirodakashayi Vishnu. The Paramatma manifestation is not eternal in the spiritual world. Therefore, the factual absolute truth is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. He is a complete energetic person, and he possesses different separated and internal energies. In the material energy, the principal manifestations are 8, as above mentioned. Out of these, the first 5 manifestations, namely earth, water, fire, air, and sky, are called the 5 gigantic creations, or the gross creations, within which the 5 sense objects are included. They are the manifestations of physical sound, touch, form, taste, and smell. Material science comprises these 10 items and nothing more. But the other 3 items, namely mind, intelligence, and false ego, are neglected by the materialists. Philosophers who deal with mental activities are also not perfect in knowledge because they do not know the ultimate source, Krishna. The false ego, I am, and it is mine, which constitute the basic principle of material existence, includes 10 sense organs for material activities. Intelligence refers to the total material creation called the Mahatattva. Therefore, from the 8 separated energies of the Lord are manifest the 24 elements of the material world, which are the subject matter of Sankhya atheistic philosophy. They are originally offshoots from Krishna's energies, and they are separated from him. But atheistic Sankhya philosophers with a poor fund of knowledge do not know Krishna as the cause of all causes. The subject matter for discussion in the Sankhya philosophy is only the manifestation of the external energies of Krishna as is described in the Bhagavad Gita. So the verse again, Bhumir apanlo vayu kamano buddha evacha ahankara iti yame bina prakriti ashrita. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego, these comprise, altogether these 8 constitute my separated material energies. Namo Vishnu Vidaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhute, Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane, Namaste Saraswati Deve, Gauravani Pracharane, Nirvishesha Srinivadi Patskadyade Sadarna. Sometimes the devotees are not very much interested in studying the Bhagavad Gita. They think it's rather dry philosophy, doesn't have much relevance to our lives. Maybe they think it's too simple, but actually Bhagavad Gita is the basic knowledge. At least when Sanjaya finished reciting the Bhagavad Gita to his master Dhritarashtra, his hairs were standing on end in ecstasy. Therefore, we can understand how well we're hearing the Bhagavad Gita if our seeker or if our hair is standing on in ecstasy or our hair is standing on ecstasy, then we know we're doing a good job of reading the Bhagavad Gita. Other than that, we may have to study a little bit more carefully. Now, one of the problems living in the modern society is that we're living in a basically an atheistic society where they've developed their knowledge apart from the soul, apart from the super soul, and apart from the supreme soul. So practically everything we heard since we were born was nonsense. Not completely nonsense. They know something, but they don't know very much. Just like a child can see a car going down the street and they think that the car is going by itself down the street. They don't know that there's a driver. Then an adult will know that actually there must be a driver in the car, or at least someone by some control, remote or otherwise, controlling the car. That requires intelligence. Those who are child or childish, they don't recognize the driver in the car. Similarly, the entire material creation, it has a driver, just like this body that we're in also has a driver. Whether we're the driver or the passenger, that may be discussed, but at least we know that we're in the body. And because we're in the body is still moving. When the soul or any soul leaves their body, then the body doesn't move anymore because there's no more driver. The conclusion is that the body doesn't move by itself. It moves because the driver and the passenger are in the body. Otherwise, if we think that we don't take into account the super soul or the soul, then we're simply children. No matter how many titles we're given, we must be considered to be childish in our so-called understanding of things. Similarly, as Prabhupada expresses in this verse, that the so-called scientists, the material scientists, the only thing they discuss is the elements, the 5 gross and the 3 subtle elements, at best, about Krishna's creation. They don't know about the soul, they don't know about the Supreme Soul, the Super Soul, or the Bhagavan, the Supreme Soul. Therefore, their knowledge is imperfect, and everything they do is imperfect also. Because Nate vidu swartagatim hi Vishnu Tarashayaye Bahir Artamanina. They don't know that the goal, the reason why the material energy is there, the goal of the material of life, the human form of life, is to obtain Krishna consciousness, to become aware of the soul, ourselves, become aware of the super soul who's guiding us, and to become aware of the ultimate goal of life, Krishna. Because they don't know that, the Tevidu Swartagatim Vishnu, therefore everything they do is Darashayaye Bahir Artamanina. It's childish. It's simply playing around with material nature without understanding its purpose. Surely the scientists can manufacture interesting items in the material nature so we can play. Like for children, there are many persons manufacturing toys to keep them occupied, to keep them enchanted. As a matter of fact, that's what modern society is very good at, is keeping everyone bewildered, like little children watching a television or a movie. At the end of the movie, nothing really happens. Nothing, it's the same old movie. Again and again, boy meets girl, girl meets other boy, two boys fight with each other, girl goes with the winner. That's more or less the same story again and again. Sometimes boy meets girl, girl meets dragon, man kills dragon, boy goes with girl, or sometimes the dragon kills the boy, and then the girl and the dragon go with each other. So this is modern society, simply the same story again and again and again. They think when they read Bhagavad Gita, or maybe we even think when we read Bhagavad Gita, what a simplistic understanding, how primitive. Bhumir apanalo vayu kam Buddha evacha, kanmano Buddha evacha. Here, supposedly God is saying there are only 5 gross elements in this world: earth, water, fire, air, and ether. How simplistic, how primitive. But actually, when Krishna is saying Bhumir, earth, he's not describing just some clod of earth. He's describing the energetic properties that this material world is made out of. That is, anything that's solid, that when you touch or you knock on, it produces sound, for instance, and it has smell. That's called earth. And anything that keeps things together is called water. For instance, if you have flour, chapati flour, and you add water to it, then it makes a dough. So water is the element, the energy that keeps things together in the material world. Similarly, fire is the energy, whether it be the fire in your stomach, or the fire on a stove, or radiation. It's simply an energy that transforms one substance to the next. Usually for instance, water plus fire can transform into air. Or if you take the fire away, then the water may transform into ice, solid, into a kind of earth. So fire is that element, that energy that transforms one energy to the next. Similarly, air is the energy that moves things in this universe, whether it's moving the planets or it's moving our food that we ate from one part of our body to the next, ultimately pushing it out. That's all done by air, which causes movement. Similarly, ether is that energy that permits things to be held in their place. Now, we cannot see, generally speaking, we can see earth, we can see water, we can see fire, we can see the movements of air. When air moves clothes on the laundry, on the clothesline, we can see air is there. Generally, we see air by its effect. Ether we cannot see, but we know something must be holding things in place, providing the space that things can be fit into. Now on the level, so the scientists are studying the effects of these energies, and sometimes they study a little bit about the mind, all the different emotions that the mind goes through as it watches these 5 gross elements transform themselves, go from one state to the next. It produces different types of emotional reactions to it. But they don't know, actually, even the most elementary parts of psychology. That psychology is very simple, that people are hankering for a better arrangement of the material energy, the one that they always looking forward to, and they're always disappointed, whatever arrangements that they're made, and therefore they're always lamenting. Psychology is quite simple. Our life is composed in the material world, either hankering to a better existence, material existence, or being disappointed, lamenting about the fact that it never came about the way we wanted it to. We hanker for that ice cream cone. We can't wait till we get it. And then every lick we take diminishes and we're lamenting. It's disappearing. It's disappearing. It may die. It's going to die. It died. It disappeared. Oh no, I have no more money. I can't get another ice cream cone. My life is a failure. So the material scientists, they study the 5 gross elements, something about the mind. As far as intelligence, they're using their intelligence, as Krishna says, to create horrible, unbeneficial works meant to destroy the world. Now, of course, not every scientist is going to such an extreme that he's simply creating weapons or things that are detrimental to human society. But mostly people using their intelligence to waste their time. People will spend their whole life taking a stick and trying to hit a little ball into a hole. And if the little ball goes into the hole, then they're considered a good person. And if it doesn't go into the hole, they're going to have a heart attack. And everyone considers them to be useless. So this type of intelligence, which requires intelligence because people become very expert at such an activity, but it actually has nothing to do with the soul or the super soul in the heart or the supreme soul. And therefore it's disconnected from actual reality. It's just watching the material energy, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego, go from one state to the next. The ball's out of the hole, that's bad. The ball is in the hole, oh, that's very good. What the results of that will be That's more important than whether the ball goes into the hole. For instance, I may be practicing my whole life swimming in the ocean or swimming in a swimming pool in order to win the Olympic gold medal. And indeed, if I become successful after so much endeavor and I win the medal or medals year after year, I just get more and more medals, then the result will be that soon I'll become a fish in my next lifetime. Since I'm only thinking about swimming, so Krishna will give me the benediction, the material nature will give me the benediction, so that in my next lifetime, I'll have a huge swimming pool, the ocean, to swim back and forth on. And I can compete with all the other fish that are trying to chase after me and eat me. So I'm inspired to swim faster and faster. So this type of advancement is simply childish. Now, of course, people will say that we're being childish, that why is it that we are emphasizing that there's a soul? Of course, we can demonstrate to people that the body is changing, denosmin nitadehe, komar yovanam jara. That changing material nature that we're all observing. That the material nature, because of the different energies, for instance, fire is always existent in every form in this material world. Without fire, things could not actually exist. When the fire in the stomach goes down, then we can't digest anything. And if we can't digest anything, then gradually we'll dwindle and disappear. This body will disappear. Similarly, even if we touch this desk that I'm on here, right? It must have some fire in it. It may not be blazing fire, but there's some fire in it, because otherwise it would be freezing. When I put my hand on the desk, immediately it would stick. I couldn't move it off the desk because it would be so cold that my hand would stick to the desk. So there's fire in the wood. We just don't see the fire, as we don't see the fire in our stomach. But the fire is there. So the soul is observing all these different changes of these energies, and it's not observing itself. But with a little understanding, we can understand that we exist at least. So that's great advancement. The question is, what other aspect of knowledge is there? A little observation, we can see that we may have a little water in our cup, but there's vast oceans that we can observe. So the question is, where do these oceans come from? Where did the sun come from, this ball of fire? Where does the air that we're breathing come from? Where do all these vast expansions of energy come from? We can produce a little bit of sweat, perspiration, if we work hard. And in that sweat, there's a little bit of salt. So we can produce a little perspiration. We can create, maybe if we sweat enough, we can create a small lake for an ant. And the ant will wonder, where did this lake come from? One ant may tell another ant, I think it came from a person. Oh, you're just sentimental. Next, you'll ask us to worship the person. No, this lake obviously came from nothing. It just appeared out of nowhere. So for an ant, it can't imagine how this vast lake of water with salt in it came about. Now, a more intelligent ant who has more experience may notice that when he was crawling on one person, there seemed to be a lake coming out of him. So he may come back and tell his fellow ants and then become enlightened that actually there was this huge monster from which the lake came from. Similarly, if we look in this universe, well, not in the universe, in our very planet, we go to the seashore, we can see a vast ocean with salt in it. Now, the scientists have no idea where the ocean came from. Therefore, they just ignore it. But we know that the ocean of salt came from the perspiration of Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. We know that this huge expanse of fire called the sun didn't come about by accident. It came about by an intelligent person through his diverse energies. So this requires, when one sees like that, then they become an intelligent person. This is the beginning of philosophical life. Philosophy doesn't mean to just speculate and try to defeat another speculator. Sometimes the devotees also like to do that. Where did the soul come from? They spend their whole lives debating with each other where the soul came from. And by the end of their life, they don't know where they came from or where they're going. They can come back and debate the issue again, maybe in another form of life. So philosophical life is necessary, but philosophy is actually should be quite simple. The more we become philosophical, then the more we should be able to see things in relation to Krishna. That's philosophy. Karma means we take these energies and we understand that they're not our energy, karma yoga. That's all. That amount of philosophy is called karma yoga. All these energies are all around us. This body is an energy. I'm in the body. I'm also an energy. But this body and all these energies around us, they don't belong to me. Therefore, they should be utilized according to the direction of the actual owner. And that actual owner has given us his directions in Bhagavad Gita and through his representatives, Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. And he's telling us within our heart how he wants us to utilize his energies. So that's called karma yoga. I may not know who that supreme person is. I may have theoretical knowledge about him. Just like when the sun comes up in the morning, I may not directly perceive the sun, but I know because there's sunlight in my room, therefore there must be a sun shining outside. I may not see the sun, but I'm sure it's there because I'm aware of its energy, the sunlight and the heat. Similarly, I may not directly perceive Krishna, but because I can understand how his energies are working, therefore I know that Krishna is there because his energies are working. Now, Jnana Yoga means that there's a person behind this material energy, and I get to know about that person. At least Jnana Yoga means that I know that person is an intelligent person. He's not a dead stone. He's not love. The person directing this material energy is the most intelligent person. And he's in my heart, giving me remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. And the more he gives me knowledge, then the more I can perceive things as they actually are. The more I become aware, philosophically aware, simply the more I can see how everyone and everything is related to Krishna. That's all. And beyond that is when I become aware that that person who's directing the universe is my friend. He didn't put me in this universe because he didn't like the way I looked. Therefore, all the ugly people came to the material universe. Or he didn't like the way I dance or whatever. So I was dancing one day in the spiritual world, and Krishna said, "You look pretty clumsy. I think you should go to the material world and dance there." Or I don't like the way you sing, so you should go to the material world and you can sing there. Maybe as a bird, you'll sound better. No, Krishna didn't send us into the material world because he didn't like the way we looked or the way we sang or the way we danced. He sent us in the material world because this is where we wanted to go. He didn't want us to go here. We decided to go here, and we have still decided to stay here for at least some time. Now it's up to us to understand how Krishna is the controller of this universe, how he's the proprietor, how he's the enjoyer, and how he's our best friend, how he's trying to guide us back to the spiritual world so we can be with him forever, or how he's trying to guide us so we can be with him now. We don't have to wait to go to the spiritual world. We can directly have a relation with Krishna, even in this present material existence. So Krishna has created material energies for this reason, so that we can learn how to utilize them for his service. Unfortunately, most people don't recognize that the material nature didn't come about by accident. They think it's here, they don't know its purpose, but they invented a purpose that is here for our sense gratification. Because they don't know about the soul, because they don't know about the Supreme Soul, because they don't know about the guiding Super Soul. Therefore, all they know is the material nature, and they have a scratch, an itching sensation. Like a monkey. If a monkey has a scratch, it doesn't philosophically think, well, if I scratch the itch, maybe it won't go away. Maybe it'll get worse. My mother told me not to scratch the itch. No, the mother is always scratching the itch. So that's called sense gratification. So so-called human beings have simply come here and they think the idea of life, even human life, is just to scratch the itches that we have. And therefore, the whole society is simply meant to scratch people's mental or physical itches. And the more you can scratch your itch, then you're considered to be more advanced. If you don't have an itch, then you think my purpose of life has become, has been destroyed. Prahlad Maharaj said, Yanmai tunaidi grihamedi sukam hitu cham. That the major itch is sex life in the material world. And therefore everyone's enamored by that itching sensation of sex life and spending their whole existence trying to scratch that itch and all the minor itches that come along with it. And that's what they teach their children, how to scratch the itch. But, well, as Shukadeva Goswami says to Pariksha Maharaj, because Pariksha Maharaj was just about to leave his body within 7 days. And therefore he became serious. What am I here for? Where am I supposed to go? What should I do to prepare myself for leaving my body? The sages there who were giving Shukadeva Goswami advice gave him different types of suggestions. You should meditate. Maybe you should go and get some Ayurvedic medicine against snake bite. So many different types of advice they were giving him. Finally, Shukadeva Goswami came and he said, thank you very much, Pariksha Maharaj. You asked a very intelligent question. Pariksha Maharaj asked the question, what is the duty of a person who's about to die? Now, if you go to the university and you ask the learned professor, if you're a student, Like when I was at the university, I was a devotee. And I asked the learned professors there different questions. Like, what is the purpose? What is the duty of one who's about to die? So the learned professors that were not very happy about such a question. Luckily, they didn't call the police and tell them that there's a person here threatening us. He asked me what was my duty if I'm about to die. So I take it that he was a terrorist and he was about to threaten to kill me, and I should figure out what to do now. Luckily, that didn't happen. And luckily, when Shukadeva goes, when Pariksha Maharaj asked Shukadeva Goswami, what is the duty of one who's about to die? Shukadeva Goswami didn't call the police and say that Pariksha Maharaj is threatening me, that he's going to kill me. No, he took it as a very important question. He said, Varyan Esha Tate Prashna. That questions of these questions like you're asking are the prime subject of human civilization. That anyone who asks such a question gets benefited by hearing the answer. And anyone who also hears the question, the answer to that question, not only the person who asked the question, but anyone who hears the answer, they also become benefited. And even the person who answers the question becomes benefited. Now, this is the last question that anyone asks. As one sannyasi told me that at one time he asked his mother, when he was a very small child, Mother, why do people die? Not an unreasonable question. But her answer was, are you feeling sick? She didn't know the answer to the question. So she thought, this is a very disturbing question. Maybe my son is sick. He actually thinks he might even die. But Shukadeva Goswami said, people do ask questions. It is not that people don't ask questions, but they ask the same questions that the animals ask, or the birds. One bird is asking another bird, chirp, chirp, chirp. And the other bird is answering, beep, beep, beep. Does anyone know what that means? Bird language is actually quite simple to learn. If you become a bird, you don't have to go to school to learn it. The grammar is extremely simple. So chirp, chirp, chirp means where's the worm? And beep, beep, beep means it's over there. So that's generally the philosophy that the birds are chirping. And Shukadeva Goswami said, if one is not inquisitive about what is the duty of a person who's about to die, then he'll also have questions. Shrotavyadini Rajanja, Srinam Shanti Sahasra Shaha, Apashatam Atmatatvam Griheshu Grihamedinam. That in human society, oh, king, there are hundreds and thousands of questions. The internet has trillions of inquiries. Google Guru has thousands, millions, hundreds and thousands and millions of inquiries every day. So people are asking hundreds and thousands of questions every day, but they generally, except for a very select audience, they don't ask about Atma Tattva. They ask about Griha Medina, about how to improve eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. That is how human form of life, or at least the intelligence that one has in the human form of life has been directed towards only eating, sleeping, mating, defending, and nothing about Atma Tattva. And we may struggle with the same thing. We have a little time off. The television's there, the magazines, the newspaper is there, the magazine's there, and the Bhagavad Gita is there. And we think, maybe I should, what is new? And we think, well, maybe the real news is in the newspaper. Maybe it's in the internet. Maybe it might even be on the television. And there's the Bhagavad Gita. Oh, it's the same old thing. I fall asleep every time I hear that. That's all they talk about in these classes. How my body's changing, but I'm not changing. I heard it a million times. I'm not going to hear it anymore. I'm going to watch the newspaper. I'm going to watch the news on television and find out what's really going on, because I'm curious. So there are hundreds and thousands of questions about eating, sleeping, mating, defending. And what are all these questions meant for? Because I'm afraid that my body might die. And I must protect my body. I must make it comfortable and happy. Therefore, I get a wife, I get a husband, I get a house, I get children, I get so many things. I even get my dog, my pet dog, and I train him. If the Yamadutas come, you know what to do. You bite him. Rawr, go away. So everyone is making so many arrangements to prevent ourselves from leaving this body, because we don't know where we're going after we leave this body. Because we don't see how this energy is connected to Krishna. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, it's Bina Prakrita Ashada, that this material nature is my separated material energy. So what does it mean? Krishna expands his energies, but he has this very special energy called the material energy, which is being described in this verse. And he says it's his separated energy. Therefore, we can understand it's simultaneously Krishna, it's his energy, and therefore it's not different from him, but it's separated from him. Just like this lecture is being recorded, and it'll be played on Facebook or other venues. The sound will be there that's being produced, but I won't be there. Similarly, everyone here who's on this program, even if your face is recorded, you won't be there, because even our energy, our speaking, or anything, or our face, whatever, it's our separated energy. Similarly, this is Krishna's energy, but he's separated from it. He's in control of it. He set it up. It's working under his direction, Maya Dakshena Prakriti, but he's aloof from it. It's simultaneously. It works according to his rule, but he's not directly involved. Although by his direction, because he's the super soul, therefore it says that upadrastanamanta tra Bharata Bhokta Maheshwara Paramatmeti Chapyuto Dehesmin Purusha Para. Krishna is with us. The Supreme Soul is with us all the time. That doesn't mean that he's part of the material nature, because we're also not part of the material nature. We're just dreaming we're involved in the material nature. He's with us, but he's not dreaming. That's the difference. He's fully awake. And we're dreaming that we're actually going through all these different material situations. Just like when you watch a movie, they will take a movie like Avatar, because I know devotees who thought that this must be a spiritual movie because it has a spiritual name. So they went to see Avatar, the movie Avatar. And they became absorbed in the movie, like everyone gets absorbed. Movies are very easy to get absorbed in and actually imagine ourselves be participating in that activity. And when the hero, because previously at least the heroes used to win and the villains used to lose. Of course, nowadays it's due to the modes of nature changing. Sometimes the villain wins and the good person loses. In any case, whoever we identify with, we get some kind of emotional stimulation by such an identification. Sometimes they try to make movies so they have seats where you can feel the motion and you can hear. Obviously, we see and we hear. Some movie theaters even try to put some smell into the atmosphere, so you get completely absorbed in the movie. In the same way, we're absorbed in this material creation, and we're thinking that we're a product of these 5 gross and subtle elements, but we're not. We're aloof from it. We're eternal spirit souls. We exist in a different platform of existence, but we're dreaming that we're part of this creation. But Krishna is with us all the time, but he's not dreaming, he's awake. And therefore, he's directing the material nature how to fulfill the desires of all the living entities according to what they deserve. It's his energy, he's aloof from it, but without his presence, then the energy wouldn't work. Just like without the presence of the soul in the body, although the soul is not really personally or physically taking part in the activities of the body, still without his energy, that the body won't work. Similarly, without the energy of the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Soul, then this material universe won't work. But simply because we're present in this body and this body is working, so many energies are being produced. As I mentioned before, because of our presence in the body, so much perspiration is coming. Simply because Krishna is present in the universe, so many oceans are there. So Krishna has inconceivable energies and he can produce inconceivable manifestations. Just like we have one tree, and that tree, a citric tree, a lemon tree, can produce practically unlimited lemons. And each lemon, there is citric acid. So from one tree, we can get an enormous quantity of citric acid. As we know that one Brahmin was walking, Narada Muni was on this planet, and he came upon one Brahmin. I've mentioned this story before, and the Brahmin wanted to know when he was going back to the spiritual world. And then Narada Muni also met one cobbler, and he also asked, when am I going back to the spiritual, to Narada Muni? When you go to Vaikuntha and you see Narayan, please ask him when I'm going back to the spiritual world. So Narada Muni was in Vaikuntha, and he was talking to Narayan, and he remembered the request of the Brahmin and the cobbler, and he asked Narayan, I met one Brahmin, and he asked when he's going back to the spiritual world. So Narayan said, well, I don't think he's going to go back until many, many thousands of lifetimes. Oh, that's interesting. Then he asked the shoemaker, the cobbler, when is the cobbler going back to the spiritual world? He asked Narayan when the cobbler is going back to the spiritual world. And Narayan said, not after, he said, actually the cobbler is going back after his present existence, after his present life. Oh, well, that's really interesting. Now the Brahmin, I think, is going to be quite surprised because he thinks he's quite elevated. And the cobbler thinks he's quite fallen. So they're going to be surprised. So what should I tell them? So Narayan said, when you see the cobbler, when you see the Brahmin, just tell them, if they ask, what was Narayan doing when you saw him? Tell them that he was threading an elephant through the eye of a needle. Okay. So Narada Muni was back on the earth planet, and he met the Brahmin and said, my dear Brahmin, I saw Narayan in Vaikuntha. And the Brahmin said, oh yeah, I'm sure I'm going back really soon to the spiritual world. When did he say that I'm going back to the spiritual world? Well, Narayan didn't know exactly, but he said after many thousands of lifetimes. What? That's not possible. There must be something wrong. Tell me, what was Narayan? If you actually saw Narayan, what was he actually doing when you saw him? Well, I was sitting there and he's just threading an elephant through the eye of a needle. What? You're crazy. No one can thread an elephant through the eye of a needle. That's ridiculous. You didn't see Narayan. Go away. Bogus Narada. Then Narada Muni met the cobbler, and the cobbler said, oh, very nice, Narada Muni, so good to see you again. Did you happen to see Narayan, Lord Narayan in Vaikuntha? And he said, yes. So what did Lord Narayan say about my going back to the spiritual world? So Lord Narayan said that you're going back to the spiritual world after this very lifetime. Oh, fantastic. That's great. My Lord is so great. So what was my Lord doing when you saw him? Tell me. Oh, I was sitting there, we were talking, and when we were talking, Narayan was threading an elephant through the eye of a needle. Fantastic. Wow, that's wonderful. You actually believe that Narayan was threading an elephant through the eye of a needle? Of course, why not? My Lord is so great, he can put in this one banyan tree thousands and hundreds and thousands of other banyan trees in the seeds of this banyan tree. So if my Lord can put millions of banyan trees in one banyan tree, so why couldn't he do something simple like threading an elephant through the eye of a needle? So that's called faith based upon knowledge. If we see this material world and we understand how it's related to the Supreme Lord, that's called faith. But that faith is based upon knowledge. And if we read all this so-called knowledge, so-called imperfect knowledge, it may not be 100% wrong, but it's imperfect. The so-called medicine, engineering, chemistry, physics, philosophy, devoid of Krishna consciousness, devoid of knowledge of the self, the soul, devoid of knowledge of the super soul, and devoid of the knowledge of the Supreme Bhagavan, the most attractive soul, Krishna. Such knowledge is certainly incomplete and will not serve us very well. It may help us. It is not that materialistic science are completely devoid of knowledge, but their knowledge is incomplete and will not actually bring us to the goal of life, which is to become Krishna conscious. So I'll stop there. Thank you very much. Are there any questions?
Nirguna Prabhu have 2 questions.
Okay. I hope they are pertaining to the class. If not, we'll answer it on email, Nirguna. Okay, you can ask them.
Okay. First question. What is Maharaja's view about devotional activity? if there is a tattoo that is a proof, like name of Krishna or picture of
I can't understand anything you're saying, Agnihotra Prabhu.
What is the Maharaja view about devotional tattoos? If
Devotional
there is
tattoos,
a tattoo that he
that's
approved.
devotional tattoos. Okay. We'll answer on email. Second question.
If Sri Advaita is a combination of Mahavishnu and Mahashiva, then why Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu shows Sri Advaita his form as Lord Varsha, which is an incarnation of Mahavishnu?
Varaha.
Braha. I'll answer the question on email. That's all right. Any other questions? No questions. That means everyone agrees.
Guru Maharaj, I have a question, if possible.
Yes, of course.
I have question. Can I?
Braja Sundari.
So it seems like mundane entertaining and relaxation is not seen in a good light in our movement. It's like kind of condemned for being useless. So what can a devotee do to relax when he's feeling burnout after maybe a lot of service or something?
Take some prasadam and read Krishna book, read Bhagavad Gita, and then take a nap and dream about Krishna. Go for a walk and chant rounds. What were you thinking about? What would you like to do? Or what will you usually do?
I understand that you gave the example with the golf that, for example, doing sport for relaxation is not seen as being good, is seen as being useless.
Well, not only useless, but it may bring you to a lower species of life. Because Prabhupada said swimming and wrestling are Vaishnava sports. When you're swimming, you can think of Lord Fish, Matsya avatar. And even if you take birth as a fish, at least you'll be swimming in good company. And wrestling, you can think about wrestling. Krishna was wrestling with the cowherd boys. So you can think about Krishna wrestling with the cowherd boys. Or even at worst, wrestling with Chanura and Mustika in the assembly of Kamsa, in the wrestling match. But generally,
sorry, Guru Maharaj, what about doing yoga or Tai Chi?
Well, those things are meant for the physical health. There's a difference between just doing a sport, a competitive sport, and doing something which maintains your body. Prabhupada used to go for a walk. And Prabhupada even recommended yoga to some devotees. So sometimes for physical health, the body requires some exercise. But that's not meant for simply entertainment. It's meant to maintain Krishna's body, which is part of our devotional service. Of course, it can be taken to an excess too, when they try to become a pretzel in this lifetime. But that will not be very beneficial. The aim of life is not to touch your toe to your nose, although a little stretching may help you be able to use this body better in Krishna's service. Yes, Agnihotra, you had a question, or someone else had a question?
Yes.
Hi, Krishna Gurudev. Can I ask you a question?
After Agnihotra, because he was first.
Okay.
Agnihotra.
Can a devotee become a Madhyama Adhikari just by reading Srila Prabhupada books without engaging in devotional service under the guidance of a Madhyama Adhikari devotee?
No, it's not possible. Unless, of course, if you read the books day and night, 24 hours a day, then one will make spiritual advancement. But generally there's theoretical knowledge and there's applied knowledge. So the theoretical knowledge is meant so that we, for instance, we can think about that knowledge, we can assimilate the knowledge, we can see the world through that knowledge, and we can apply that knowledge, especially in relationships with other devotees and with Krishna, with service. Of course, hearing is also service, but that hearing should also be applied to perfect our hearing in service to other devotees, service to the innocent, and even service to the non-devotees by trying to avoid their association. So we're not only hearing so we get theoretical knowledge, but we're hearing so we can get applied or experienced knowledge through applying what we hear in practical activities. Otherwise, for the conditioned soul in Kali Yuga, hearing will not necessarily help us assimilate the knowledge or understand the knowledge as clearer as if we actually try to practically apply the knowledge in the loving exchanges with other devotees and in service to the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Okay, yes.
Little question, sorry, about this question.
Okay, little answer.
How close the association should be with the devotee of the Madhyama Adhikari?
How the association should be with the Madhyama Adhikari?
So how many times if do our devotional service under guidance of the devotee Madhyama Adhikari?
We take guidance from the Uttama Adhikari and the Madhyama Adhikari. We take the guidance from the Uttama Adhikari, how to see things perfectly. And also, we take guidance from the Madhyama Adhikari, how to see things according to our different levels of present perception, how to engage in practical devotional service when we're conditioned souls as Kanishta Adhikaris. So the Uttama Adhikari is our goal, but the Madhyama Adhikari can teach us how we can engage as potential Madhyama Adhikaris by doing our service out of love for Krishna, how to cooperate and exchange loving exchanges with the devotees, and how to take instructions from superior devotees so that we can advance in devotional service and become Uttama Adhikaris. Madhyama Adhikaris first, come to the platform of liberation, and after that, come to the platform of pure, unalloyed devotional service. Okay, one more question. Nityaseva, Devidasi.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Gurudev, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. I had this question that, when we are chanting around, so like I was chanting my rounds before, I'm still chanting. Then before it was with feelings and, with some love, but lately it's not so much, and it's mostly because out of, just, I guess, out of the duty, and also my gayatri's are not on time because I'm working like in the night shifts. I sleep at 3:30 a.m. in the morning. My shift finishes at this time. So I'm not even doing my gayatri's on time. And to be honest, one time I actually left my gayatri's because I was like so upset about this that I was not able to do on time.
Yeah.
So because 6, 12, 6 like this, when I was not able to, and I'm like sleeping 3 and then waking up really late in the morning because of the night shifts. And so then one day I just got so upset with this. I was like, I'm not doing my gayatri because I'm not even doing gayatri's on time. And then because of this night shift.
Yeah, but you don't have time. Just do it 3 times whenever in 24 hours. You don't have to do it exactly on the right time for the time. Just do it 3 times in 24 hours. That's all.
Once I did in the afternoon, I did my first gayatri around 3 p.m. Then 6 p.m. and the night 9 p.m. like that.
That's all right. The whole idea is just those times that are recommended early in the morning when the sun comes up and when the sun's at the highest place, when the sun goes down, it's just because those are ideal times to chant, to meditate. Well, you can meditate anytime.
Okay. So I was actually feeling very guilty about this, that I was not like doing.
Yeah, you don't have to feel guilty. Guilty will not help you, especially when you can't, when you're not. Just like Vasudev had to hand over the children that were born to Devaki to Kamsa. So what could he do? That was the circumstance. He made a promise. He had to protect Devaki, so he did what was necessary. He couldn't change it. So he, to the best of his intelligence, he worked according to his circumstances. So there's no reason to feel guilty. You should feel Krishna conscious. You should go on with your service, whatever the circumstances are, and try to make the best use of it by engaging in Krishna service to the best of your ability.
Gurudev, this is about the Gayatris. Thank you so much for clarifying this. But also my chanting is sometimes late. Like, to be honest, like yesterday I finished my rounds like 11 p.m. Yeah. I always do my rounds and I go to sleep. I never leave my rounds. But I'm just saying I don't like it like when I'm doing it late. But I guess it's
better off not to lament. Just be enthusiastic. At least you should, even if it's 11 o'clock at night, you should think, I'm so fortunate. Even at 11 o'clock at night, I'm chanting Hare Krishna. Believe me, at 11 o'clock at night, I'm usually not chanting Hare Krishna. But you're more fortunate because even at 11 o'clock at night, you're chanting Hare Krishna.
Thank you for clarifying.
Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki jai, Gaur Premanande, Hari Bol.
Thanks, Guru Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Спасибо большое.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Можно сказать Харе Кришна, Харе Кришна, Харе Кришна, Махарадж.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Hare Krishna, Maharaj.